There are currently 2.3 million people on the brink of starvation in Zambia. Food aid in the form of grain has been sent to Africa, but the Zambian government has refused to distribute it because it is deemed unsafe, because it is GE, that is, genetically engineered. People in North America, and elsewhere around the globe, have been eating GE food for years without any health problems. Why then should the Zambian government not accept GE food aid when it could save its own starving people? The reason is stigma. Stigma is a phenomenon which has plagued the international food trade for years, and which has existed ever since humans entered into the business of spreading rumors, making scientifically unjustified accusations, and spreading gruesome tales of disease. As rumors, accusations, and tales are passed from person to person, theories become absolutes, and fiction becomes fact. One example of stigma may be found over 100 years ago. In the late 19th century, continental European countries and Great Britain imported much of their meat from abroad. These meat supplies included pork from the United States, that is, until U.S. pork became the victim of stigma. In 1878, Trichina spiralis, the parasite responsible for the human disease trichinosis, was found in U.S. pork exports. Capitalizing on this discovery and other warnings from scientists, many European governments adopted, or as in the case of Britain, considered adopting bans on U.S. pork. The general fear of contracting trichinosis from American pork was a gift to European protectionists. In fact, many European governments used the stigma to justify a trade embargo on U.S. pork.
There was in 19th century Britain, as in many other European countries, a perpetual tension between providing animal disease or food safety regulations to protect against disease versus doing so simply to buttress domestic cattle and meat prices. The transatlantic trade dispute over trichinosis in U.S. pork began, as I said, in 1878. However, 3 years later, the whole controversy was complicated greatly by the British consul in Philadelphia.
The British consul in Philadelphia, George Crump, composed a report that served to complicate the entire pork controversy. His report, widely published in the London Times, stated, "From a sanitary point of view, it may not be impertinent to call your lordship's attention to the immense mortality among swine by a disease known as hog cholera, of which about 700,000 head have died this year in Illinois. Immense quantities of pork are annually shipped to the United Kingdom, and as the disease Trichina spiralis seems to be on the increase in this country, the subject is not unworthy of your attention."
Significantly, Crump's report implied a link between trichinosis and hog cholera, an entirely unrelated disease. Now, Crump went on after this report to describe a very gruesome case of trichinosis in the state of Kansas. Quoting from his description, "Trichina were found. Worms were in his flesh by the million, being scraped and squeezed from the pores of the skin. They are felt creeping through his flesh and are literally eating up his substance. The disease is thought to have been contracted by eating sausages." Now, the Kansas report was never confirmed, but that really isn't the issue. Whether it really did occur or did not occur, the placement of this description in a newspaper such as the London Times, which was by far the most widely read newspaper in 19th century Britain, greatly confused and confounded and incited emotions in the dispute. And we see the same thing today. Whenever reports surface about the gruesomeness of foodborne disease, we should not be surprised that people become concerned about it.
While the gruesome account of trichinosis in Kansas was never confirmed, it stigmatized U.S. pork and was used to justify trade embargoes across Europe. That was over 100 years ago. Returning to 2002 and to Zambia, we can see that stigma is still at work. There, 17,000 tons of GE food aid is waiting to be distributed, but it is not because of the claim that it is unsafe. How did this rumor start? According to one study at Cornell University, the pollen from a GE corn plant, Bt corn, was found to be toxic to monarch butterfly larvae. But this study did not replicate the actual conditions in the field. Rather, butterfly larvae were force-fed Bt pollen. In actuality, Bt pollen possesses only a theoretical risk to monarch butterfly larvae. But that didn't seem to matter once the results of the study entered the rumor mill. This summer in Toronto, an organic-themed picnic called Biojustice was held, informing people about the alleged dangers of GE foods. Despite the upbeat mood, the dominant emotion seemed to be confusion.
The butterfly wings we designed because the larvae, which are caterpillars of monarch butterflies, are dying from the cross-contamination and the pollen blowing from canola on.
Stop. The Cornell study was done on BT corn, not canola.
To the milkweed around the fields, and so the butterflies die when they go into cocoon. So I guess the caterpillars die when they go into.
This is genetically modified canola.
GE, genetically modified canola and soybeans. That the pollen blows on the milkweed, and then the butterflies die, and also ladybugs too.
Ladybugs too.
Yeah.
Stop. BT pollen has no effect on ladybugs.
So we designed the wings just to get people talking, because everybody loves the wings, and they're like, hey, what's it about? And then, you know,
I see all the kids wearing them as well.
So yeah, we're getting all the kids to talk, and we're telling them, you know, just why we're wearing them and what's going on. And although I haven't been over there for a while, but yeah.
So is it like, is this all the genetically like what company makes the these canolas and the soybeans?
Oh, that I don't know specifically, but I know Monsanto, and all the Roundups, like the Roundup Ready soy, Roundup Ready canola, Roundup Ready corn, all of those.
Those ones are bad for the monarch butterflies as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Stop. Roundup Ready crops were not the subject of the Cornell study. Roundup Ready crops have no introduced toxins, and thus pose no threat to monarch larvae or anything else. Sadly, confusion about GE food is not limited to the results of the Cornell study.
Genes, I heard about that. Do you know? I think it's fish gene. I guess it's supposed to make it. No, I think the fish genes was for strawberries to make them resist the cold. But
actually, it was fish genes in tomatoes, not strawberries. Now, while this mistake may seem harmless at first, let's consider where he got his information. If we look at Greenpeace's website, we can see where the activist got his ideas from. Under the What is Genetic Engineering section, it is implied that fish genes could be inserted into strawberries, but the activist has taken this to mean that fish genes have been inserted into strawberries. More disturbing, though, is this section, which mentions the potential for allergic reaction and transfer of toxins, which is quite similar to a statement which was made by the Zambian agriculture minister when he was asked why he believed GE foods were poisonous. The Zambian agriculture minister was quoted as saying, "What else would you call an allergy caused by a substance? That substance the person reacts to is poisonous." Using electronic media to take advantage of the stigma attached to GE foods, Greenpeace and other groups such as Friends of the Earth have waged a misinformation campaign against GE foods, and even convinced the Zambian government to refuse GE food aid. But while the media may be different from what was used over 100 years ago, the phenomenon is still the same: stigma.